The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift was directed by Justin Lin and stars Lucas Black and Sun Kang. A teenager who's very fond of cars is forced to move to Tokyo with his dad, where he becomes a new member of the underground Tokyo drifting world. We're on to number 3. This is the third Fast and Furious movie I am reviewing leading up to Fast and Furious 9. Still a long way to go though, because that movie does not come out until April 2021. Nevertheless, I wanted to review all these movies as I have been doing. I have spaced all of my reviews out because obviously it's going to be a while until we get that movie. But Tokyo Drift is a movie that I look back on and say, why did critics hate this movie so much? They didn't mind the first movie as much as they minded this movie and the second, which to me makes no sense because Tokyo Drift is by far the best movie out of the first 3. It's also the first Fast and Furious movie that's completely separate from the first 2 films, which I really appreciate. I'm glad we don't have to be around Dom and Brian O'Connor again in this film. It's completely refreshing and feels entirely new, which I really like. I do want to mention too that if you have not seen the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, I will be going through some spoilers because there are a few plot points in the film that I need to talk about in order to get the best review possible for you guys, so please go watch the film first if you have not done so already, and then come back and watch my review. The star of the film is Lucas Black, who plays Sean Boswell, the teenager who we follow throughout Tokyo Drift. And you know what? I do like Lucas Black a lot in this film. Other people probably thought he was miscasted or they did not like the character of Sean Boswell in Tokyo Drift, but for myself, I found Lucas Black as Sean Boswell to be a character that we can really get behind. And Black plays him pretty well. He's snarky, he's full of himself, but at the same time, he's a character that we understand and somebody that we can root for throughout Tokyo Drift. So I find the main protagonist in this film, Sean Boswell, to be a character that I actually like quite a lot. Other people maybe not as much, but that's just my opinion. I think Sean Boswell is one of the better characters in the entire Fast and Furious franchise. As for Sun Kang as Han, this is his introduction in the Fast and Furious franchise, and for many people, this is the best character in the entire franchise. For myself, he's definitely top 3. I 100% think that Sun Kang is one of the best aspects of the Fast and Furious franchise, and in Tokyo Drift, he is probably the best part of this whole movie. He's just so cool in this film, super relaxed, someone I would want to hang out with in real life. He's not a hothead like Dom Toretto. He's somebody that's completely different from what we got in the first 2 movies, which definitely makes his character way better than anyone else that we've gotten so far in this franchise. In terms of story in Tokyo Drift, it's a coming-of-age tale, which I've always been a sucker for. You have a character that doesn't get off on the right foot, but eventually becomes a better person and starts getting better at their craft. Like I said, Lucas Black as Sean Boswell plays a character that I can root for. I get behind this character through and through in Tokyo Drift, and there's not a moment in this film where I'm like, I don't like this guy at all. No, I actually root for him the entire film, and this is a good coming-of-age story. Similar to a lot of coming-of-age stories as well, Han is Sean Boswell's mentor in the film, and these two grow a very strong relationship, one that comes off as extremely meaningful and does have some depth to it, unlike some other relationships we saw earlier in the Fast and Furious franchise. And that's what makes Han's death near the end of the film even more impactful. 2 likable characters that you grew so close to and their relationship. It just sucks to see Han die the way he did near the end of the film. Is that a complaint for myself with this movie? Maybe a little bit, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. It does have some depth and meaning to it, just like their friendship. Something else I really like that this movie does is that there are a lot of montages in the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. This adds value to Sean Boswell's growth as a drifter. If you don't have those montages of Sean learning how to drift, it wouldn't feel earned by the end of the movie. You need that because Sean can't just go from bad to great in terms of drifting without those scenes. We need to see Sean learning how to drift in order for us to really get behind the idea of him becoming a great drifter. I do wish a film like Ford v Ferrari would have also included montages because in the film, it does feel like they go from bad car to great car in the matter of a few scenes. Anyway, less about Ford v Ferrari and more about Tokyo Drift. The racing scenes are exhilarating and improved in this film compared to the first 2 in the Fast and Furious franchise. And wow, what do you know? We have a smart director in Justin Lin behind the camera, giving us more realistic racing scenes unlike the first 2 movies, because in this movie, believe it or not, there are actual cars on the road when these guys are racing on highways. Wow. Somehow, the first two directors completely missed the mark on that aspect of the film. And if you're watching this movie for the first time and wonder how the heck does this connect to the rest of the Fast and Furious franchise, well, once you get to Fast and Furious 6 and Furious 7, you'll then realize, okay, this movie does have a lot more meaning to it than I originally thought. And I like that about this film. At first, you're like, is it really necessary? Does it make sense to have Tokyo Drift? And then later on in the franchise, you're like, oh my god, yes, it makes sense to have this movie. And just the fact that this movie is its own little thing, I like it even more for that. If you couldn't tell by now, I think The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift is one of the better Fast and Furious movies. It's extremely underrated. I have no idea why critics hated this movie as much as they did. It's so much better than the first one and the second one. I don't know what the heck critics were thinking back in the day, but this movie is easily the best of the first three, and it's still one of the better ones in my opinion. But it wouldn't be a Fast and Furious movie if I did not have at least a couple of complaints. First and foremost, this movie, being a coming-of-age story, does go down that formulaic route that you would expect. If you've seen a coming-of-age in a Fast and Furious movie film before, you know where this movie is going from beginning to end. Plus, it also has its fair share of cheesiness, over-the-top moments, and cliches, but surprisingly, it's not as dumb as the first two. Tokyo Drift at least has a sense of realism every now and then. The first two films are like, screw it, but this movie does seem to care more about making a good story and less about having a bunch of stupid, over-the-top car racing scenes. I do appreciate this film a lot because it's not like the first two where there is basically no story, nothing makes any sense. This film at least makes sense. It feels more grounded and has a story that's relatable. I didn't even mention that Sean Boswell has a love interest in Tokyo Drift, and Bow Wow is also in this movie. Whatever, it doesn't even matter. They're not important to what this film really sums up to. Tokyo Drift is a very underrated film in my opinion. Yes, it does have its fair share of problems like all the Fast and Furious movies do, but it's one that I do wish people would appreciate more just because not only is it separate from everything else in the Fast and Furious franchise, but also does seem to have more of a story than the rest of the films in this franchise. So I'm giving The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift a 73%. You may agree with that score, you may disagree with it, but that's the way I feel about The Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. In my opinion, it's one of the best movies to date in the Fast and Furious franchise. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you guys love The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift? Do you hate it? I want to know what you think. So let me know down below in the comment section what your thoughts are of it. Also, we have more new movies that came out on Netflix and Disney+. I will be reviewing The Five Bloods, which should be coming out tomorrow or Monday, as well as Artemis Fowl. So get ready for those two reviews coming up very soon. If you're new to my channel, click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.